I won't quit. Those were the words of Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley when asked what she would do if she loses this weekend's South Carolina primary. The South Carolina primary is one that election watchers have circled on their calendars because Haley was a two-term governor of the state. And despite polling showing a commanding lead for former President Donald Trump, Haley told the Associated Press that she will not leave the race regardless of Saturday's results, and she's vowed to stay in the fight against Donald Trump until at least Super Tuesday, which is a slate of 16 contests on March 5th. Joining us now to unpack what's at stake in the South Carolina Republican primary is Mark Sanford, former congressman and governor of South Carolina. Governor, thank you very much for joining us on Forum Daily.
My pleasure.
A USA Today poll released this week showed Trump with a 65-35 lead over Haley. If those numbers hold true, what does that mean for the Haley campaign?
Well, in conventional terms, it would mean the end. And that's what you would sort of normally expect. But, I think that she has a lot of folks backing her from a financial standpoint that keeps her fuel alive. And therefore, I suspect she will stay through Super Tuesday. After that, I think there's going to be incredible pressure for her to get out. But between here and there, she has enough, money, fuel to keep the campaign going. At this point, it's gotten somewhat personal, and I think a lot of people are encouraging her to stay in. And you never know what could happen. I mean, Trump can beat Trump. That's the one guy who can beat Trump down here. And we'll see if something unfolds between here and Super Tuesday on that front.
And why do you think there is a disparity here between the financial backing that Haley has and that translating into success in the primaries?
Your average billionaire does not have the same thoughts and concerns that a lot of working folks in South Carolina do. I mean, there are a lot of blue collar folks that don't make a lot of money that have been, in essence, they feel shorted by the system and they don't like it. And Trump has become sort of a proxy for let's break the system, let's try something new. And, I was talking to some retirees the other day down at Sun City, and their point was it's kind of like chemotherapy. It may near kill you, but at the end of the day, it's your only, way forward. And that's the way they've sort of viewed the Trump candidacy of all things. So you have a disconnect between folks of means who had benefited from the way that things have been working of late and a widening, wealth gap and disparity on that front, and people who are struggling, which makes up a lot more of the folks in South Carolina than it does the high end, with the exception of a band of folks along the coast of South Carolina where I think Nikki will probably overperform.
And if we look back at the 2016 South Carolina primary, Trump won that with a pretty modest total of 32.5%. One would think that a two-term governor may be able to surpass that in a head-to-head contest. What are some of the key reasons on why it's different, why we're not seeing Haley overtake Trump in her own state?
I think there are three things. I mean, I think one, success begets success in the world of politics, and people want to back a winner. And so you've seen that piling on effect with the entire congressional delegation. You've seen it with all the constitutional officers. So most of the folks who are sort of at play, if you will, from an electoral sense, want to back the winner. You see that going on. I would say you also have in essence, I guess the term would be not minding the home fires. I mean, Nikki's star has climbed quickly. And so she's gone on to the next thing, at the 6.5-year mark or so, she left the governorship to become UN ambassador. And she has been busy, in fairness to her. But as a consequence, some people felt like a little bit of spent rocket fuel down this way. And so you see people who were on her former finance committee or ran her inaugural, who were then part of Tim Scott's campaign and are now part of Trump's. And I think that's due to just not minding home fires. And then the last thing I would say is it is a phenomenon. I mean, Trump has become the proxy for let's try something different. And when you're beyond a political candidate and a phenomenon, a brand, if you will, that's a powerful thing to compete against.
Yeah, I want to touch on that phenomenon when we come back from the break. and look at where the Republican Party has come from and gone to. I mean, we look back at the Tea Party generation, if we call it that, into Make America Great Again, and that conversation. So stay with us. We're going to be right back on Forum Daily with Mark Sanford, former governor of South Carolina. We're back on Forum Daily. We're sitting down with Mark Sanford, former governor of South Carolina, talking about the upcoming primary. Governor, a lot of pundits have said that if Trump has a resounding win in South Carolina, that the primary is pretty much over, that Super Tuesday is a formality. Do you agree with that view?
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. I mean, the catch being there's three variables. I mean, Trump beating Trump by saying something incredibly inane, although I don't know what he could say that'd be further out there afield than some of the crazy things he's already said. The court system and his health. So I suspect there's some measure of, Nikki's camp wanting to hang around the hoop to see if there's a drop ball. But absent that, yeah, I'd say it's pretty much over.
I want to shift gears here to something you alluded to just before the break, the future of the Republican Party. How did a party that was largely overtaken by the Tea Party movement, advocating for limited government, shift gears so quickly to the mantra of Make America Great Again?
Well, it's a reminder of how much leadership actually matters in commerce and education and the world of politics. I mean, in this instance, I was there. I saw it back in 2008 and thereabouts with the formation of Tea Party. And it was people who were legitimately upset with TARP funding. And they were saying, wait a minute, this money center banker who's taking a helicopter to the Hamptons is getting a bailout. But my cousin's pizza shop that went broke down the street is not getting a bailout. And it was at that point people began to ask in a way that I'd never heard before questions of fairness, of equity. Was the system rigged against them? And simply helping folks of means and of connection. And as that time has gone by, it sort of metastasized into something more virulent. But that's the origin of this, and it's real. And so, I think Trump has run with it and sort of twisted it in form. But the origin of where these folks were coming from and are coming from has been legitimate. Of wait a minute, there is a widening wealth disparity in America, and some of the folks at the top are doing that much better, and some of the folks aren't. And so there's this populist bent within the Trump campaign that is tapping into something that I saw way back at the time of the Tea Party, though it, again, has metastasized based on poor leadership from Trump's end into something that I think is more dangerous.
And so if Trump is the nominee, is that essentially the end of what was the Tea Party Republican era? Or are you making the case here that they've kind of adopted some of it in the not new, but new-ish brand of Make America Great Again?
Well, Jefferson talked 200 years ago about eternal vigilance being the price of liberty, and there was always a battle line. So, there is no finality in the world of politics. And this stuff, like McCarthyism, populism runs its course. At the end of the day, will be proven false. A lot of the answers that Trump has, this is the guy who said, I'll build a wall, didn't build a wall. This is the guy who said, I'll eliminate the debt, instead added to the debt. At some point, the voter will say, wait a minute, this is a false prophet. He said he was going to do all these things. He's not doing them. I'll go on to the next flavor. But folks have hung with him because they're hurting. They're desperate for a new answer, something different. And until they've exhausted this possibility, and they've gone a lot further than I ever thought they would, it's still strong, and it'll, I think, absolutely carry through this Republican election cycle.
And what about the prospect of Trump versus Biden round two? Is this something that Americans or the residents of South Carolina are really excited for? And I ask that question as a Canadian looking south. You have two candidates with potentially high negatives when Americans are polled and how they view them, concerns about their age, concerns about their maybe ethical decision making. How did we get to a point where we could have a rematch?
It's a reminder of the power of brands. I mean, I don't know what kind of toothpaste you use, but I doubt you changed it over the last week. You get used to what you're used to. And again, particularly if a personality becomes the default for breaking the system, it's sort of a proxy for, it's a powerful thing. And so there's just a lot of inertia that goes with politics. You go with what you know. And it's a weird time in American politics. I think Churchill was right when he said the beauty of the American system is that it always does the right thing, comma, after it's exhausted every other possibility. And I think that's sort of where we are. It's a weird race. People look at it and say, I guess it's a foregone conclusion. I don't like it. It's not what I would have picked, but it is what it is.
Governor Sanford, thank you for your time today.
Yes, sir.